Hello, welcome to today's webinar, JES, More with Less for Less, presented by Ed Jaffe, Chief Technology Officer of Phoenix Software International. SHARE is pleased to continue our webinar programming with this informative and educational event. Please note that presentation slides and recording will be available post-webcast at www.share.org. We encourage you to submit questions for speakers throughout the event via the Q&A box on your webinar toolbar, where they will be answered at the end of the presentation. There is a survey after this webinar for you to complete. We thank you in advance for your feedback. Today's presenter is Ed Jaffe. Ed Jaffe joined Phoenix Software International in 1987. He became Manager of Research and Development in the mid-1990s and was named Chief Technology Officer in 2009. Ed co-manages the MVS program at SHARE and is recognized throughout the mainframe community as a subject matter expert and strong advocate for the Z Systems platform. I would like to now turn the web over to today's presenter. Please go ahead, Ed.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. Let me see if I can get my screen started up here. Can you see it, Melanie?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we're here to talk about JES, and basically I'll giving you an overview of our company and the product, and maybe a little bit of demo and things like that, and hopefully you'll find it informative and maybe a little bit entertaining at times. So our background as a company, Phoenix Software, has actually been in business since 1978. As she said, I joined in '87. Relatively small and nimble company. We have 3 locations, LA, Tulsa, and Raleigh, although we're going to be consolidating Raleigh into Tulsa. But we consider ourselves to be very responsive to customer needs, or at least our customers consider us to be that way. We are a privately held company. We don't have shareholders, quarterly profit demands, that sort of thing. We are, completely in touch with our code. We don't have routines people are afraid to change, which you find in a lot of big companies where people sort of come and go on projects. All of our developers are seasoned professionals living and working in the USA, and no part of our operation is outsourced, and we don't have plans to outsource any part of our operation. Our customers are Fortune 500 corporations, and everyone from small to big, and of course we implement best practice security policies in all areas to ensure customer data and information are protected. Now, one of the things we do is we really focus on, leveraging the latest hardware and software technology, and really there's 3 or 4 main reasons there. Three that maybe you care about. The first is that we care about performance. The latest technology is usually better performing. So if you're leveraging that, you're helping the customers save money and get things done quicker. We care about reducing customer costs. That's almost exactly the same thing. The latest technology tends to help reduce those costs. And of course, we care about our platform. As she said, I am an advocate for this platform, Z Systems in general, but ZOS in particular. And as long as the latest technology is being leveraged, that helps us compete against alternative platforms and remain viable. And of course, lastly, technology is just plain cool. We're kind of bit twiddlers over here. We just love playing with it. So when it's there, we play with it. And our support is top rated by our customers. Some of them have to rate us every year. And they tell us we're among the best support organizations in the industry. So we're quite proud of that. We deliver annual releases. No cash cows here. Everything is significant new function every time around. And many of our customers are involved in early support programs, and so we have to be ready for those, usually May or June, to tolerate changes in new operating system releases. So we're right on top of all this kind of stuff. And the title of this presentation is More with Less for Less, and what do we mean by that? Well, more, the first more means that we're providing better function and ease of use, making people more productive, okay? And we're trying to ensure there's no trade-off between performance and function. We have, a lot of small things that add up to a big whole when you actually look at this stuff in detail. We use a lot fewer machine resources. That's the first less, so that's this down here. And And these numbers, these are based on some internal benchmarks we've done. But like when we're accessing JES-2, we're between 3.5 and 12.5 times faster than alternatives that use SSI 80. We are 5.5 times roughly faster for JES-3 in that same benchmark. And if that wasn't good enough, we can upload up to 94% of that processing onto a zip processor. So, you know, that story is really a good story for us. Now, as I say, these are internal benchmarks, so we, you know, classic disclaimer, your mileage may vary. And the last, for less, means that it essentially costs less to acquire and to operate. So, like I said, we are kind of technology junkies, and we have leveraged the cool technology the moment we get our hands on it. We have actually taken a leadership role in this area. And even though most of this technology is made available by IBM, they themselves tend not to leverage their own technology in many of their products until many, many years later, or sometimes not at all. And so it's not safe to assume that they, in fact, are using their own technology, but we do. And so if you go all the way back to 2002, we were one of the first exploiters of 64-bit storage, and then we have coupling facility access, large DASD, relative and immediate programs, EAV, things like this, advanced DASD channel programs, and working our way all the way up to these days we're doing parallel processing. We're putting our storage in megabyte pageable pages. 80% of our product is now A-mode 64. I just checked that out the other day, so we're kind of quite proud about that. We are now supporting IBM's Knowledge Center, either accessing it from EJES and also putting our books under it and so forth, and of course we have JES Web. So one of our focuses, as I mentioned on the first slide, is providing the best possible user experience, and this is really important. You know, things like non-textual heuristics, adherence to the principle of least astonishment, that is a paramount thing. And the guys that work for me will tell you, I'll look at something and I'll say, you know, that violates the principle of least astonishment. Please, let's fix that. And it's important to us because, you know, we want the thing to be super easy to use. If you know how to use one display, you know how to use them all. If you know how to use one command, you know how to use them all. And in particular, we like to, you know, many of our customers, most users are running under ISPF. And so we try to make sure that the things that we do are things that jive with the way ISPF does things, and it doesn't look like something being shoehorned in, you know what I mean, which you can certainly do. So for us, it's really a matter of pride. I am a co-MVS program manager at Share. I'm deeply involved in the mainframe community. Our customers are our friends, and if we were less than excellent, we'd be embarrassed. So we strive for and we meet excellence. So we are doing a lot of things that are positioning for the future. All of this ZOS interface modernization that's going on, we are definitely players in that. You know, it's not necessarily an acute problem. You don't have overnight all of a sudden everything has to be a GUI. But you really need to be doing this sort of thing, and we have our roadmap for this. And two of our initiatives in here is one to leverage the CA Core Software Manager for installation, and that seems to be very well accepted by customers. And the other thing is for our end users, we are providing now JES Web, which is a browser-based interface to EJES, and I'll be going over some of that later. It's really quite powerful, and hopefully I have time to do some demo on it for you. Now, one of the things that's important to note is that JES Web is a Java-based offering, and IBM has given Java highly preferential treatment in the hardware and software design for Z systems and ZOS, and in terms of customer terms and conditions that you're running. Originally it was on ZAPs, now ZAPs are gone and you have only zips, but they do zap on zip. So you're not charged for those cycles in the traditional way, and we believe that that trend should continue, and ZOS Java is a very solid language platform choice with great investment protection. And we're very, very impressed with what IBM has done with Java on ZOS, and I think a couple shares ago, the presenter said that Java runs better on ZOS than on any other platform in the world, and frankly, I believe that. So this is the EJS solar system. It's a sort of a pictorial diagram that shows all the different ways that you can access EJS in a ZOS environment. What we love to do with this thing is, if we get into a competitive situation, we draw great big red X's through the ones that don't exist in whoever the competitor is. And we've never found a situation where we couldn't draw a whole bunch of red X's. So we're definitely the ones setting the bar here. There's more ways to run EJS than any other product out there, and we're quite proud of that too. Down here you could see this is the JES Web stuff down at the bottom. Hopefully you could see my pointer. This go-to webinar has its own pointer, but I found that thing was a little too persistent for me, so I've decided just to use the built-in pointer on my desktop. So this is the EJS core in the middle here, and then all these are interfaces to it, and then outside of that are all the exploiters of it. So we have a Windows interface that's really truly operating in Windows mode on a Windows desktop, but that's really being our statement of direction that's being deprecated, and we're putting everybody onto EJS Web now. These are all the languages that you can call and things like that, so I did not mean to have that happen. Anyway, so it's quite a good picture. The next picture is our galaxy, and that is what we basically call, if the other thing is a solar system, then the galaxy is a collection of solar systems, and in this case we're talking about how do we manage things in a in a parallel sysplex environment, and you can see that we're leveraging XCF. We're leveraging coupling facilities in the case of JES-3 customers, and on each of these little green rectangles is a solar system. And I actually took my other solar system and kind of shrunk it down. It kind of looks kind of good in there. So anyway, so we've got a lot of good technology in here. Now, zip direction, I think this has kind of been done to death, but it does bear repeating, because zip redirection is quite beneficial in terms of in several ways. First off, lowering software bills. Anything that runs on a zip is not being charged in the classic way. You can actually improve the performance of that work, especially in an environment where you're running with kneecapped processors, okay? Because only the CPs themselves are dialed back. The zips always run at full speed, and so if you can move work onto a zip, let's say you're in a 50% kneecap, you're now getting double performance if you can run something on a zip. The other thing about zips is they are often underutilized. So by so you have a lot less contention and processor delay and things like that. So that's another way that using zip can help the performance of your workload, even if you don't have kneecap processors. And of course, if you move anything onto a zip, you're in effect making room on the general CPs, and therefore you're helping the performance of other work in the system by reducing the amount of contention and processor delay that they may experience. So it's a good story all the way around. And here's an example of what EJS will do. So ISPF does not run under a zip, okay? That's just the way ISPF is. So when the ISPF user hits the enter key or whatever key they're hitting, then they start a transaction, and for some period of time, while ISPF reads the screen, formats variables, and things of that nature, you're on a CP. And then, of course, the screen that was being displayed by EJS, and eventually ISPF will return back to EJS out of that display service, at which point EJS will then transition onto the zip. And so that's what's over here in purple. And so at that point, all the execution is on the zip, or virtually all of it. I mean, all the address space accesses and various services, we call them, things like that. That's mostly all done on zip. I/O, that's all on the zip. Now, a lot of companies do that. They're incapable of getting I/O to run on a zip, but since we have our own proprietary I/O driver, we can do start I/O right there on the zip. We do not have to switch back to a CP in order to do like an EXCP, SDC, or something like that. So that really makes a big difference, right? That's, you know, another high technology area. And then once we're all done, then we would transition back to the CP again, and then invoke ISPF to write the results out, and then the user gets the results right there. And in some of our tests, we've seen the highest for an ISPF user is 94% offload. And what we do there is just take a 3270 emulator and just put it in write a macro for it, put it in a loop, you know, hitting enter, or, you know, whatever button we're pressing, and just put that in a loop and just let it run and burn cycles and see how much of it's being offloaded. So that's pretty easy. It's something you can do too. This is a good picture of a traditional multi-system client-server request and response model. What you end up having is, and I'm not going to read through all this text, but you do have all these different requesters, and what they tend to do is each one will send a request through some sort of a network, whether it's a XCF, a CTC, you know, OSA, whatever it is, some request over to a remote server, and then that remote server would have various units of work fired up to handle those requests. So then that work gets done, and then the results get passed back over. Okay, so that's a classic model, and it's really needed if you have absolutely no idea what your data looks like, what kinds of requests are going to be coming in, and so forth. But we have a lot of control over our data, and so we're able to do some highly optimized things in this area. And so instead of having the remote server and having to send all those requests across basically asynchronously like that through a network, what we do instead is we have our servers talking to each other. And there's a local copy and a remote copy, and you have all these different result sets. And let's say all these users want job type data. And what we do is the first one that comes in, and we realize this result set needs to be updated, we'll send a single request over to this guy, who will then fetch all the results, put them in the result set, send back only changed data to the original requester, who then updates his result set, and then releases this guy, and all the other requests that come in for that can all take advantage of that one exchange there. So that really does make a difference there in terms of the ability to speed things up, and you really see, especially in the larger shops, dramatic CPU savings, and there's no observable delay. So the larger you are, the better this helps. If you're a very small shop, then, you know, and especially if you don't even have multiple images, then obviously this doesn't even apply. But it's just another example of what we're doing from a technology standpoint. Okay, so I was going to, you know, I don't want to sit here and just go through all these, you know, highlights of our tabular displays. What I thought I might do instead is try to switch into sort of more like a demo type situation, and just give a few demo highlights on this, in hopes that demos. Now, people always caution me, you know, well, demos are, you know, that's scary stuff. You probably shouldn't do that. Well, yeah, it is kind of scary stuff sometimes, but I'm pretty confident that our demos will work out for us. So anyway, I've decided that since we do support both JES-2 and JES-3, that anything I show you in 3270 will be JES-2, and anything I show you in JES Web will be JES-3, and that way you can see them both in action. Anyway, one of the things that we do is we have real easy ways of being able to filter these things. And so, for example, I'm going to, in this case, remove all the jobs that start with auto and get rid of those, or I'll get rid of maybe I'll do it a different way. I'll say I'll get rid of these that say SMOR and get rid of all those. And so you can either include things, exclude things. You have all those different criteria that I showed you. You can either do it through commands or through these pop-ups. It's pretty easy stuff. There's another kind of pop-up, additional selection criteria. We have meta filters where you could, got to spell it right, where you can, you know, create these custom filters. We have temporary selection filters. We have invocation selection filters. I mean, the list goes on and on. So you can filter yourself till you're blue in the face. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you about how the filters work, a lot of products have filters. But in our case, like, for example, you could, let me just do this. I don't have one saved, but I'm just going to type it in. Something like this. So all the add-ins and all the JCL errors are what I am displaying right now because I'm in filter true mode. If I go into false mode, then it's just the opposite. All the things that don't have that are what we are looking at. I can go into color true mode. Oop, I keep typing file instead of filter. And in this case, you could see these blue ones now. Those are the ones that have the problem. So they've been colorized in effect. And of course, I can just do the opposite there. I keep typing file. See false mode, for example. And then now just the opposite. The ones that meet the criteria are in the normal color and the other ones are in the other color. And of course, you can customize these colors all you want. So hopefully that's all I have to type for Phil since I keep typing file. We have a lot of help in here for users. You know, any field that you press F1 on, you're going to get help about what that field is, what sorts of things are in it. If it's, let's see, let me see if I can find. Here's one with an S013 admin. I do an F1 against that, and it says, hey, the job terminated due to an open error. See message IEC 141I. But you know, if you know what you're doing, you probably don't even need to look at that message on many of these descriptions. So we're really helping people be more productive by not having to look up so many things. They can understand what all these columns mean. Like a thing like job priority that's overtypable. If I hit F1 on there, it's telling me that's the priority of the job. And if I hit F1 here in the overtype, it tells me that I can put in a number from 0 to 15. So these pop-ups are really something that's quite useful. Now, I talked about trying to do things the way that ISPF does, and one of the things that you'll see with ISPF is this kind of thing where, let's see if I could do this. You get into a selection list, and you'd say select all asterisk B. And that will, in this case, browse everything that starts with the word ALL, okay? So you can do similar things here. So, for example, let's say select SMP asterisk B for an example. And then there's an SMPE job, there's another one, I guess there's only 3 on this display. So the same sorts of things are there in the case of the select command there. Now, there's a lot of power, though, that we add to this in terms of select command that isn't there. Like, let me find, there's that SMP job down at the bottom. Now, typically, what you would have to do is move your cursor all the way down to whatever it is, through whatever means you're going to use to get there, and then do a browse or a select against it, something like that. So, but if you know what row you're on in EJS, you could say, you know, select 117 browse, and then you could do that without having to move your cursor, okay? Or you could just say 117 browse, right? You don't need the select because it knows it's a number. That's all it could do. Or you could say, you can even nest these things, just the way that with ISPF, you have 3.4. Let's see if I can get out of this. There's a bunch of these ALL guys. Okay, so in ISPF, you have this notion of 3 and then 4, or you could just say 3.4. Well, we carry a similar notion here. So for that, you could say 117 select. Well, let's take a look at the data sets that are in there. Okay, there's a data set called BPX print. So if I wanted to say 117 S dot, let's say S BPX asterisk, something like that, S.S. See, now I'm actually browsing that data set. In fact, all data sets that start with BPX. So, and then when I hit F3, I pop back to where I came from, just like you would in ISPF. So we're doing a lot of these kinds of things that just help people, you know, navigate through these things and get their job done, you know, just that much quicker. And the same applies to things like locate and other things like that. It's all very much the way ISPF works. what else do we have on here that would be of interest? Oh, one of the things I wanted to show you was this extracting. You can extract either to disk files, or you can extract to print, sysout. And when you do sysout, you have the ability to add all these different sysout parameters to it. When you do disk, you have the ability to get, data set lists and things like that, so you don't have to pre-know the name of the file. You can do extract to Unix files and, go through, this sort of thing, find Unix and get yourself into a subdirectory somewhere, and then maybe create a new file here, abcde.txt or something like that. It created it to there. So we have support for all those kinds of things. All right. So at this point, I'm going to go back to this and move down to highlights of native browsers. So I'm not sure if I already covered some of that, but I'm going to go back to my demo and see if I can bring up some browsers. So I'm going to try that SMP OREC guy that I saw. And if I browse him, I'm looking at 9 data sets here, and of course I can go through them, to the tops of the data sets and things like that. I can separate the data sets up. We have this notion of box, and so you can split them up so that they are separate entities from the standpoint of find and scroll and things like that, or I can take that back off and I'm back to concatenating everything together. If I'm doing a find, I do not have to go through each and every hit the way you would in ISPF. I actually have the ability here to do, we have our own rfindp command, and in my case I have that set to Shift F5, and that'll take me to the next page. So once I've satisfied myself that I've seen all the hits on a page, I could just skip right past it. And if I really want to use ISPF, I could type view in up here, and then I would be using ISPF view. If I want to do that directly from here, I could say browse with viewing, and then take it directly there and just skip through that feature right there. So anyway, those are some of the things that you could do with native browsers. Hopefully I've covered at least some of the things that are on this slide. I just don't want to bore people by droning on and on through text. I kind of like demos. I did already demo the extract facility there, and you saw that we could go to classic data sets, sysout, or ZOS Unix files, and it's kind of neat that we can give that catalog display on the classic data sets. Our APIs are just really best of breed. There's just no question about it. And whether it's the Java API, whether it's the Rex, whether it's the high-level assembler, C, C++, etc., those APIs, they're all actually based on the very same API. And in fact, JES Web uses the Java API, which in turn uses the C++ API. So it's all stacked, and there's no way that, we're not just providing a function that you can't get to. All the functions that we use, that we build JES Web on, are available to you if you care to use them. The customer application infrastructure is really a very powerful part of JES. It's something that allows you to put your own plugins in. And so, for example, let's say I wanted to, let's say I come over here and I go to like the health checker, and I see that there's an exception medium here, and I want to send that as an email to somebody. Okay. One of the things that we provide is this email choice here. So you can email a report object, whether it's health checker or a job or some output, whatever it is. And when I typed in that dot there, I was in essence telling it that I want to bring up this menu. Now I can shortcut that because I know that this is M. So if I already know what it is, then I can put in .m and go straight to the function. So in this case, I'm going to email a copy of this particular report to myself, and this is the little cover sheet that I'm putting together. You can have BCCs, CCs, you can have lists, basically those are the messages coming out there. But basically these dot, dot, dots means that other people are copied on that. And I believe that if I hit F5 here, it shows me who's in there. Yeah, so that's myself and Ray Mullins. So we're both receiving that email right now. So that's like the interactive way to do that. There's also a batch way to do this very same thing. So let's see if I can find the right. I think there's a list cat in here. Yeah, there it is. And if I do this list cat all and submit that, what I've got here is once that runs, we've got this little utility that we deliver called EJS Mail. And in that thing, you have the ability to have a job either send parts of itself, parts of another job, anything it wants through this facility. The most common use case is to send either the same job that's running or part of that job. So some maybe just sysprint, something like that, or maybe just the whole job. Now in my case, I could see I'm only doing the whole job. It doesn't say DD, blah, blah, blah. If it did, then it would have limited it to that. And all right, so that guy ended. So in theory, now if I go back and look at my email, oh look, I got my reservation at the Grand Hyatt in San Antonio. Let me come down here and do a all right, so the first one came through already. So this is the one, this is the health checker example, and that one came through. So I emailed that. Basically, we had this cover sheet, and then we have attachments. And the attachment is the report object that you're sending. And presumably the list cat will come through shortly. Oh, there it is. All right, I was going to say I'll come back to it. But anyway, there it is. Dear Joe, list cat output you requested is attached, blah, blah, blah. And there it is. There's our catalog. So that's kind of neat stuff. And that's all part of the customer application infrastructure. Those happen to be things that we have delivered, and they can be used as examples for the sorts of things that you as customers can do. All right, so let me get back to this and move along. The only thing I could say about this customer core software manager is that I like using it because what's cool about it is that it undoes everything back to a known state. So if anything fails, it does the receive, the apply, accept all at once, and allocations, the works. And if anything fails, it rolls it all back to the beginning. That's pretty cool because I've done a lot of installs over the years, and if something fails halfway, you've got half updated libraries and things like that, and sometimes it can be almost harder to get out of problems, than it would be just to start all over again. And I guess that's the approach they decided to take, was just start all over again. So I think that's pretty cool stuff. Flexible licensing, we've had forever and ever and ever. I mean, ever since subcapacity came out, we've done subcapacity pricing. IBM's definition of server capacity applies, so we do not care about zips and zaps and things like that in terms of the MSU ratings. Whatever's published is what we use. And we've done this from the beginning too, enterprise-wide MSU aggregation. And a lot of vendors, including IBM, have different places where they do these cutoffs. And traditionally you've seen cutoffs at the CAC or at the sysplex or site boundaries and so forth. And ours are always aggregated across the enterprise. And customers really like that because what happens is the price tends to go down as you have more, per MSU as you have more capacity. And you don't want to have to start over again on some other boundary, okay? And then lastly, it applies to the client only. So all of our servers can run without it. And that's, some customers actually use that. They'll have a three-way Plex, say, and they'll put servers on all of them, but they only have their EJS users on one, and that way they only have to license one. So that's kind of neat stuff. Here's some highlights from our recent press releases, and we put in the big one on the last one was the availability of the current release 5.5 with support for ZOS 2.2, which is what we're running. I'm doing all these demos on, and so we have day one support for that, and we of course supported all the new JES 2 stuff in there, the dependent job control, deadline scheduling, and previously in ZOS 2.1 we did some of the other things that other JES 3 like features JES 2 put in, like long class names and CI and whatever else. I forget what else was in there, but we, most recently, JES-3 output disposition support, asynchronous multi-system display, so that everything completes very quick because it's all running simultaneously throughout the sysplex. This parallelism means on a given KEK. So we figured out how to split up some of our most expensive work into multiple things. Like, for example, a sort. If a sort is very expensive, we can split it up into multiple work units, and that tends to make it all run much faster. Okay, and then virtual storage constraint relief, basically what we're talking about there is that we are on this path to make everything 64-bit, A-mode 64, and we'll just continue to do that until we're 100% A-mode 64. And lastly, the statement of direction, I already mentioned this earlier, that the Windows-based workstation component offering, we expect that to be obsoleted by the EJES Web. Okay. Now, speaking of EJES Web, this is what its structure is. We have the EJES base. This stuff is the stuff that's on the mainframe, this top box. And then below that, we're using the EJES API, which in turn is used by the C++ API, which is used by EJES Java's API using the JNI, so Java Native Interface, I think is what that stands for. We have a DLL that uses our API in a C++ language. And then that's being used by Java, and then that's putting up a web service, a REST API, which talks with HTML and JSON over to the workstation side, where we have the native browser code. We put a jQuery layer on top of that to sort of get rid of the differences between the browsers. And then, of course, we're using AJAX transactions. Now, that looks like a pretty deep stack. And despite that, it runs like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's almost as fast as 3270. It's really, I'm going to say, well, I'd stack it up against any web-based app that I've seen, and I think what we're doing is way better. Now, the characteristics, again, our performance objectives have no sacrifice, and these are average refresh times. This was from our BC12, okay? We're now running a different machine. I can't really talk about that machine. But these are from the BC12 that we took these benchmarks on, and I don't think it really matters because pretty much a zip is a zip, and that's where we're running most of the time. And then as far as our workstation, you can see what we had: Intel Core i7 CPUs, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft 64, Windows 7 Professional. I think that's a pretty common stack out there in the industry. And you're looking at some pretty small times here, right? A 0.2% on the activity display, status, less than 0.2. So these are pretty fast numbers. And then hopefully I'll have time to demo this, so I'm going to skip through a number of these things. But I will mention this, that it's an ultra-thin, fully virtualized model. And it has a very intelligent server, and we do all the work that we can on the server. And that way we get out of the business of trying to download too much data onto the workstation. And that's, I think, where a lot of people fall flat in their implementations. They try to offload too much onto the workstation. Now, this is kind of funny because if you look at some competitive offerings, it's pretty sad. I mean, what some of the other people are doing in this space. They think they're trying to simplify, but they're making things really complicated. Like if you try to browse something and it's it's divided into so many pages of N lines each, and they download a whole page worth, let's say 2,000 records onto the workstation, and then all of your finds and scrolls and everything are just within that little page. And then you have to actually, if you want to see more data, you have to go on to the next or the previous page, or maybe randomly select the page. It's a pretty ugly implementation of the sort of things that we do. Is just it's just the obvious thing. Everything works just the way every app should work in a web browser, the way that all the apps that you know and love work, and so you don't have to learn any of these strange kludges that some people are asking you to do. So like here's an example, here's the thing, row 32, 859 of 183, 330. I mean, it's not page 85 that's 2,000 or 3,000 lines long. It's this, and as you scroll through it, it scrolls through at basically 3270 speed. You can do finds across the whole thing. You can extract it all. You can you can do all sorts of great stuff with that. The find works very much like the mainframe find, and I'm going to try to see if looks like I do have time to demo that, so hopefully I can skip through some of these a little quickly. Here's the classic pop-ups. Believe it or not, some of these other implementations people are using don't have these classic pop-ups. Instead, you have strange-looking things that I can't quite explain. I don't fully understand the rationale for them, but these are the sorts of pop-ups that you're used to if you're using other web-based or PC-based tools. You want to issue a system command, you just type a / like you would, and then you get the response here in your right there at the workstation. And here I said pause for demo if there is time, and I do believe there is time, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to try to find my JES Web. Where is it? Maybe it's here. Oh, it is here. This is that weird thing that popped up that covered it up. Okay, so I'm going to log on here. Now, as I promised, this should be a JES 3 based demo. The 3270 stuff was JES 2 based. So hopefully you can see all this. And one of the first things that's important here is that all displays are supported. It's not just some weird little subset, where they say, oh, well, we think that the audience, they're just not sophisticated enough to want to be able to do all this stuff. So we're going to just give them a subset. Well, that's really just an excuse for not having the support, is what it is. Whereas in our case, we have support for absolutely every display that EJS has, and so if you want to see what our NJE network looks like, there it is. It's pretty small. It's not any big shakes, but it seems to do the job for us. I will point out that these dimmed out things here, that's because it's trying to let you know that there's some truncation going on there. That's because I jacked up the font really big for this presentation. So in the standard fonts, you wouldn't see that. And of course, you can widen that field if you want to use these bigger fonts, and that's easily done. All right, so it has very similar filtering capability to what we have in EJS. For example, here I've taken out these auto guys. I mentioned auto before. But one thing that's nice is I can just enable or disable right here without getting rid of my filters. So what we should see is some of these auto jobs. Yeah, see, there's a bunch of jobs that start with auto right here, right? And those are just auto responders and things that we have running. So generally speaking, I like to get rid of those. And so if I enable my primary selections, then all the auto jobs are gone. You have the full meta filters capability again, and well, let me go back to this, disable the meta filters, and actually show you one. So that same one that I used before, max comp, AB asterisk, and well, in the other case I said JCL asterisk, in this case JCL error. Anyway, so you could, again, just like in 3270, you can either include just the ones that match, or you could show only the ones that don't match, as an example, or you could, again, use some of this colorizing capability, and let's say I want to colorize only the matching rows, that sort of thing. And there's one right there, an ABN 769, whatever that is. I have no idea, but there it is. So you have selection just like you'd expect. I can select just that guy. I can do a range of selections here. I can do discontiguous selections, by pressing different keys, the shift or the control. It works just like any of these apps that you would be used to using. And then you can, for example, maybe right-click on this guy if I want to browse it, and then I can browse it like this. Or if I'd rather, I could have just double-clicked, and that's a way of browsing. That's a quicker way. Or if I'm used to using 3270 commands and I want to do that, then I could just say, like, for example, :B, and then I did it with a command. So we tried to make it so that there's all different ways that you can do these things. Whatever's most familiar for you. Again, the find command's in here, so if I look for something like this string SMOR, and you can see again that we format things very similar to the way we do in 3270. Look how fast this thing scrolls. I mean, this to me is as good as the 3270. You know what I mean? It's really fantastic stuff. They've done a great job on this, and you know, I can go all the way to the bottom in no time. I can go all the way back up to the top. I can go to any point in the middle, you know, that I want to stop at. However I want to do it, it's there. It has the ability to do set, what do you call them, like bookmarks or whatever, you know, and you can use basically a locate command against them and jump around. Very similar stuff to the kinds of things you can do in the 3270 environment. If you want to issue system commands, again, you just type / issue the command, and then you see the response to the command, and you can see we're not doing much paging on this system, even though we have flashcards installed, and we're not even using them, not even 1 byte. So we got to figure out how to use more memory on this system in order to be able to take advantage of those flashcards. Now, obviously, we have the extract capabilities. If you wanted to take one of these jobs and you wanted to, let me take a little, how about this one? You wanted to take this guy and you wanted, let me find something that doesn't have any proprietary data in it. Let me do a find on SMP. Hopefully I can find an SMP job. Okay, that's good. So I could extract this, obviously, and let's say I wanted to extract it to, and we've talked about DASD, print, Unix, all those sorts of things. That's all available. But you could also, in JES Web, take it a step further and download it, for example, as a PDF. So let me just do that. And just almost as quick as you can mention it, I'm going to go ahead and browse it. It will create a PDF, and then, I don't know, that's some PDF artifact. And then there it is. There are the things in a PDF, and you could then email it to somebody or whatever you want to do. So there are additional capabilities in here that don't even exist in 3270, and so you know, some even power users may find this stuff quite useful. All right, so let me get back to my presentation and pretty much wrap up here. So I just want to clarify our business model here, because I was asked that once after I gave a similar presentation like this in England. And then the guy said, well, what's your business model? And I said, well, it's the same as the very front sheet, more with less for less, right? We want to offer more functionality than competing alternatives. We want to use fewer resources than competing alternatives. And we want to do that and provide bottom line hard dollar cost savings. And by doing so, we're sort of turning things upside down, because we're removing the traditional trade-offs that are associated with software purchases. A lot of times you're finding yourself making difficult choices like, well, is the superior function and performance improvements worth the additional license costs? Can we get by with what we've got? What we want is for customers to be asking just the opposite. Why should we be paying higher license costs for worse function and performance, right? So the idea here is to make JES the no-brainer, you know, software purchase decision of all time. I think we've gone a long way towards doing that. Now, how do we do that? You know, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. My dad used to tell me that, and he was absolutely right. The way it's done is because our costs are much closer to the real cost of doing business, right? We don't have a fancy pensions plan paying salaries to people that don't work for the company. We don't have an army of highly paid execs. We don't have highly compensated salespeople driving luxury cars to play golf with your CIO. You know what I mean? We just don't have that. We don't have stockholders taking cash out of the company every quarter, right? So there's no secret there. It's very simple, and it works, and our customers are very happy with that, and we're happy with that. And so our broad business objectives are essentially just to keep doing what we've been doing: develop world-class software that leverages the latest tech. We want to help our platform compete against competing alternative platforms, and we want to help our customers stay competitive. That's good for the platform. That's good for them. That's good for us. There's basically no downside. And so with that, I'm going to stop and take some questions. Now, before I actually get into your questions, we'll find out what they are from Melanie in a moment. I did want to, I have received a couple of emails this week, one of them just this morning, regarding this rocket acquisition of SDSF, and I guess people are starting to become aware of this. Apparently there's something on IBM Main, some discussion, and I have to say I have not been up on IBM Main. I've fallen quite far behind on it recently, so I'm going to have to get in there. But I figured rather than try to answer all these emails individually or whatever, I would go ahead and take that as my first question. Now, let me just start by saying that I know that people are concerned, and I don't think they're concerned about Rocket per se. I think it's more this bigger picture, worried about what seems to be a noticeable uptick in parties acquiring parts of IBM's software stack. And we've seen, you know, several products removed from the ADCD due to, you know, royalty situations arising and things like that. And, you know, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and a guy I know, he jokingly asked, what's next, JES? Which, you know, we laughed about that. It's really just a humorous way of asking, you know, actually a quite serious question, where will IBM draw the line? So presumably, you know, IBM, they know enough not to part with any required or strategic part of ZOS. Hopefully the people that are making these decisions recognize the strategic value of, you know, legacy code and not just stuff that is, you know, the buzzword of the month, cloud or mobile or analytics or something like that. So I'm going to say that I know that a lot of people are going to be talking about this at Share and elsewhere, and it's probably going to go on for, well, it could go on for up to years, depending on how far IBM decides to take this strategy. So we'll just have to see. Now, as far as just focusing on just the SDSF issue, we actually see it as a positive turn of events, because once you add third parties, that usually doesn't make things better. That's our experience. We've certainly seen other people try to do it, and it makes things worse a lot of times. There's additional complications. You have differences of opinion. You have, you know, a lot more uncertainty, and of course higher costs, right? And so we've all saw that the price of SDSF went up really an astonishing 20%. I think it was effective at the beginning of this year. So, and the folks footing the bill, they don't care if that 20% is IBM's cut or exactly how the money's divvied up. All they know is that it's a 20% increase. And Phoenix, we know that many of our customers and prospects are really quite cost conscious. So, you know, we think that that 20% differential is just going to make EJS that much more attractive. And as far as any function goes, well, I'm just going to go, you know, right out and say we have a stellar, and I mean stellar, track record of implementing requested function that people ask for. We do it, you know, in a timely manner, and I'll say that we, you know, virtually every time exceed expectations. We certainly meet them. So, you know, if anybody sees some core function they've just got to have, you know, you know, somebody says, well, you've got to be able to replicate that existing ISPF capability of searching linked list for a module, then yeah, we could do that. It's only code. But, you know, I guarantee we won't raise the price of EJS 20% to cover it. Whatever we do, we'll just, you know, roll in, and it'll just be part of EJS like everything else, and just, you know, supported by our very same crew that's been doing it for all these years, and we'll just move on that way. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there, answer those emails that I've gotten. And I apologize. I need to get back and catch up on IBM Main and see exactly what's being said out there. But hopefully this clarifies things and you know, makes some people feel a little more at ease. All right. So with that, I'm ready to take any questions that were generated during this presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ed. Well, before we jump to questions, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And everyone should see it pop up on their screen. So please let us know if you'd like to share your contact information with today's presenter, Ed Jaffe at Phoenix Software. And while we're waiting for everyone to respond, Ed, the first question that we had come in is, does EJS interface with ZOS-MF?
Yes, actually, that's a good question. ZOS-MF has a facility where you can create what are links to other products, and we can, basically you can log on to ZOS-MF, and then you have these links, and you can click on those links, and then you can access EJS from there. So you don't need to know like a separate web address or anything like that to be able to get to EJES from ZOSMF. You can be a ZOSMF user and click on that link, and it will take you to ZOSMF. We actually have that set up, but I wasn't anticipating the question, so I don't really have it ready to demo that. But it's really a pretty trivial thing. So the answer is yes.
Great, thank you. Our next question, by running JES Web, will that offload any ZO resources?
All right, so that is also a good question, and I realize that I talk really fast, and I tried to say that earlier, but I may have maybe not been completely clear or spoke too fast, or maybe you were just off the call during that moment. Anyway, what we have done with JES Web is made it a fully virtualized client, and we have a very smart server that's using the JES API on the mainframe, and so all the difficult work is being done on the mainframe. Now, it is being done mostly in Java, and the part that isn't being done in Java is being done in JES, and as you saw, that's running on a zip. So from the perspective of offloading from a CP onto a zip, the answer is yes. But if the thought is to offload the work from the mainframe onto, say, a workstation somewhere, then the answer would be no. We're not really offloading any of the work onto the workstation. In fact, I believe even that PDF creation happens on the mainframe, at least a page at a time. So yeah, so hopefully that clarifies it.
Great, thank you. Our next question, how hard is it to convert SDSF security over to JES?
Well, it should be easy. First of all, we have traditionally done that for people if they're still using the old the security that's like a PARM live member or a macro or something like that. We will do that for people at no extra charge, because that's usually a pretty simple thing to do. And we have some tools in-house that really aren't ready for prime time, but they help us do that. When it comes to SAF-based security, you know, we're using JES spool, writer, opera commands, all those same classes that presumably all the products in this space are using. And so those things don't really require conversion. The only thing that would then would be those whatever resources are defined in the actual SDSF class. And we actually recommend you define ours in that class too, because it's it's distributed by IBM already in the RACF class descriptor table. But those resources can live side by side during any kind of migration. So we're not actually using their resources, and you would have to convert those. But I will say that it's not a difficult conversion, and we've done it many, many times, and we're good at providing advice for those sorts of things. So, but it really, I think, depends on how much of that you have and how deeply entrenched you are. And you know, if you have thousands and thousands of SAF resources, then maybe you've sort of done something wrong, because most people only need maybe a couple dozen resources for the whole shop, no matter how complicated things are. So, you know, it's sort of one of those, it depends.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question, with JES Web being enhanced, will TP Monitor be continued to be supported for JES?
Yeah, so the TP Monitor is just another 3270 interface, and just like ISPF is, and we have absolutely no plans to ever get rid of any of our 3270 interfaces. I am a 3270 bigot. I think I was the last person on earth to have an IBM Link 3270 screen open. In fact, on the sunset day, I brought mine up and left it up just so it went past the moment of shut off, and everybody that logged off, they couldn't get back on, but I was still on because I didn't log off. So I'm a 3270 bigot. As long as I'm in the picture, there's no way we'll ever get rid of 3270. And besides, you need 3270 to be able to bring up web-based solutions. So no, we'll never get rid of those.
Great, thank you. We did have a few more questions come in. Ed, are you comfortable staying on the line for a few more minutes?
Well, you know what you could do maybe is if you have contact information for those people, maybe you could email the questions to me and I'll just write back to them. I apologize that I didn't get to everybody, but yeah, I don't really want to, yeah, I can't go over.
And as Ed mentioned, if you do have additional questions, please feel free to direct those to the speakers@share.org inbox, and we can get you in touch with Ed. And that concludes today's webcast. We'd like to thank everyone, especially Ed and the Phoenix software team, for attending the event today. This feature will soon be available on the Share webcast at www.share.org. Please remember to fill out the survey. Thank you again for attending today's webinar, and have a great day.